Welcome back, everyone. Today what we're going to be doing is building a custom rear rack for this bike packing bike. So today what I want to do is build a custom rack for it, and I'm going to explain why we're going custom and we're not just going to buy an off-the-shelf rack. I already have an off-the-shelf rack and I just don't want to use it for this bike for several reasons. The first reason is if you come down here, some of you may recall this dropout is a kind of special design, and the location of the Brazing is up here. It's much higher than the axle, so it moves the rack quite a bit up. And what that did was it put the rack really high over the back wheel. And what I want to do is get this rack lower to the top of the tire so that I can get the weight further down. I want to get the weight over the rear tire lower. I want to lower the center of gravity. So that's one reason. And then the other reason really is that buying stuff that's off the shelf tends to be overbuilt a lot of times. So I don't need to carry the kitchen sink on this bike. I only need to carry about 5 to 10 pounds. So for me, the rack can be designed to be much lighter and thinner than it would be if you were carrying, say, 50-pound panniers on the back. We're not going to do that with this rack. All right, so here's the design. It's all designed out. It's on the back of this envelope. Here's the plan view right there. That's the plan. That's the elevation view. And then this is the enlarged plan with all the dimensions of the tube and how I need to bend it in order to get the size I want. We're going to be using this bender here. This is a tubing bender. It's good for 5/8, well, 1/4 inch, 5/8, and I think 3/8 inch tubing. But only very thin wall tubing because the leverage on this is pretty low. The tubing we're going to use is this stainless steel tubing. This is actually a stainless steel A316 seam welded steel. Now when I ordered this, I didn't realize I ordered seam welded. I was actually planning to get seamless tubing, but this is a little bit cheaper, and it was about maybe a couple dollars cheaper for a 6-foot piece. So after I ordered it, I realized I got the seamed welded stainless, which isn't bad, and for the amount of weight we're carrying, it's not going to make any difference really. But I just thought I'd mention that there is different types of stainless, and this is 316 stainless, which is a little higher grade stainless. I don't know if that was actually necessary for a rear rack. The other thing we have is we have these are the tabs we're going to use for our attachments. So these are designed for 1/4 inch tubing, and the size that this fits into is a 1/4 inch tube with a 0.028 inch wall thickness. That's what this stuff is. It has a very thin wall, so very lightweight, but not as strong. So not as strong as some thicker material, but this will be strong enough. And then we're gonna have to braze these in to our attachment points. So our attachment points are gonna be, okay, let's lay this out. We're gonna have an attachment point here, like that. And we're gonna have attachment points up here to the seat stays. So connect those in right there. So we'll have 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. Now, where did I get the dimensions for this rack? Where did this come from? Well, the 6x9, the 6-inch wide came from the width of the dropouts. So the struts will basically go straight down to the Brazing on the dropout. So that's why I went with 6. And then the 9 is based on the dimensions of my bag. So I've already got bags for this bike, and I needed at least 9 inches in order to fit the bag completely supported across the width of the rack. And that's it. We're not making this to be a big rack. Like I said, we're not carrying the kitchen sink. Okay, so here on the enlarged plan, you'll see I've got all the dimensions laid out, including the curvature of these corners. This tubing bender bends a 1-inch radius. So that is what these are, 1-inch radius bends. So I did the math to figure out the lengths between the radiuses, and so that I could cut the tube what I needed, and it turns out it was 28.28 inches is what I need to cut a single piece to form this shape, 6x9 with 1-inch radius corners. So that's what we're going to do first. Then we're going to cut these pieces, and then we're going to figure out how to braze something on here. We're going to learn how to braze today too. Now disclaimer, I've been watching Paul Brody's Shop YouTube channel, and he does a bunch of how-to brazing videos. So I've taken some tips from him. So hopefully we can make this work and get these things brazed up and hopefully not break when we're out riding, but we'll see. All right, guys, it's been about 8 hours later, and we have now made our top, and I've also installed it here on the bag. This is the bag we're going to be using. These are special bags. These are ultra lightweight panniers. These are made by Sand Util Design out of Colorado. I had these custom made for me in this colorway, green and black, and then I had them use the tan for the stitching. I just liked the way it looked. I thought it matched my bike pretty well. So anyway, I went ahead and mounted this on, and you can see that the geometry came out really good. It actually makes a full closure. There's still a little springiness in the steel, but if I pull it together here, it'll actually close perfectly. So we've got the top cut, and now we're going to need to cut the vertical pieces and then the top pieces. Well, all the vertical pieces and the top pieces. And then I think in the sequence of welding this together, what I'm going to do is weld the one vertical, and then the horizontal, and then come back and do the last vertical last. That's the sequence I want to do. So that's what we're going to do next. But quick little update here. I know some of you have been watching my channel know that I'm rebuilding this Colnago steel road bike, and we had a fork made for it, and I just got the fork in. Here it is. Let's take a look at it so you guys can check out the craftsmanship of that. Isn't that cool? So this has campy dropouts, new old stock that John brazed into these Columbus tubes. These are Columbus fork blades. And then this is it looks like a classic Chinelli style fork crown. It looks like a Chinelli fork crown, but it isn't actually. It's a replica made by, what's the company called? I forget actually. Anyway, it's very close. The only difference is that, it doesn't have the drilled out holes here, which I think would have been a cool touch to add, to drill the holes into here. But otherwise, it came out beautiful. What I need to do though before I build this bike is I need to take it over to the chroming shop. We're gonna get this thing chrome plated, and I think that'll look cool because, as you can see back here, this is chrome plated, this is chrome plated, we have chrome plated lug work here, so I think a chrome fork will look really nice. And then if I decided to, I guess I could have the top part here, the crown, painted pink or something, hot pink, and then have chrome fork blades. I think that would look really cool too. But the first step is we've got to get the whole thing chrome plated. And we're in California, and there's not a lot of places that do it, so I'm gonna have to take this all the way over to Sacramento to get it done. Would put the rack up there. All right, so it's been about 36 hours now, and we now have most of the rack ready. The only thing we don't have is we're still missing 2 of the vertical struts. I've already cut these. These are going to be for the rear struts, and we'll cut the front struts that are going to come up here later. But what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and braze this together, get the rack put together. This is for the attachment to the seat stays. These need to get bent to match the angle of the where the mounting point will be based on the height of the platform. So what I need to do is then I need to braze this together, then braze these on, and then I can cut the last piece and bend these so that I know it all fits perfect. The way I want to braze this together, and I'm not saying I know exactly what I'm doing here or whether this is the right way to do it, but this is my first rack, so this is how I thought about doing it. Is first what I want to do is use a silver brazing rod to do all the connections first. So silver braze it first, then come back later with a bronze braze just to do the fillet around, to kind of thicken up the fillets around the rack joints. The reason the silver seems to flow more. It's not as easy to do like a built up fillet, but it's very strong. Oh yeah, and for flux, we're going to be using this Stay Silver flux, and we'll be using this same flux even with the bronze braze, so bronze filler rod, so hopefully it'll work. Now I did do a sample here. This was one of my trials just to see if my method will work. So the first thing I did was I silver brazed it, then I bronzed the fillets and filed them down, and then I tried to break it. So I load tested it in my vise, and you can see I actually broke the tube, not the joint. So it turns out this is pretty strong. The joint will actually be stronger than the 2 materials we're joining together. So that's the approach I'm going to be taking for all of these joints. Alright, well, here's the underside. As you can see, that was my first brazed there where I got a lot of filler in, big blob. And then over here, it looks like, ouch, it's really hot. Looks like it flowed really well around this one. This one looks a little less like it got brazed, but I do see a little bit in the joint. So I think it got in there really well. I think the joint pulled it in. So what I want to do now is I think I'm going to clean this up and add some more flux, and then kind of try and add a little more filler to around the joints here. Okay, so I've cleaned it up a little bit with some hot water, and then I started sanding off a little bit of the black, I guess that's the flux that gets coated on there, gets kind of burnt on there. So let's see, looks like here was my first joint right here. This was the first joint here. Let's see if we can get a good look at this. And you can see where I got a lot of brazing rod filled up on the bottom there. So I'm gonna have to grind all that off or file it off or something. But it looks like the joint got mostly full. I'm gonna come back over this. I think I'm gonna file this off first and get it all smoothed out, and then I'm gonna try filling this corner in a little bit better. This one actually, even though it doesn't have a lot of fillet built up around, it looks like it got really good penetration into the joint. On this side actually looks better, I think. We got some pretty good penetration into the joints, as you can see. I need to sand this down a little bit more and file it and take a look, but it looks like I got a lot of filler into the actual joint. Could use a little bit more sanding here and there, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's gonna look good. So, something like that. Alright, so I've got it mounted in here. I've got the vertical strut aligned, and then I got these bent to where I want them. The rack is now level with the ground. So what I want to do is I want to braze this joint here on both sides. So we got to braze these in, and I'm going to put a little bit of a weight up here to try to hold these down while we're brazing it. Also, I'm going to take the tire out because I figure I'll probably end up melting it if I don't. It's pretty strong already without the second strut that we need to put on here. So what we're going to do now, I need to make a strut from here that will braze down to here, and then I need a little diagonal piece across that I can use to loop straps for the bags through, and then we'll just do a final cleanup, and I think it's done. Okay, well, we're all done with the rack here. I've gone ahead and put the one of the rear bags on so we could see how it's gonna look. And let me get a back view of this. There it is. We've got one of the bags on here. These are ultra light panniers. These are not meant to carry the kitchen sink, but you can carry a sleeping bag, a sleeping pad, maybe a couple bottles of water. You know, the idea behind building this rack was to be able to carry really light panniers on the back with a really lightweight rack. I used 1/4-inch diameter tubing, and let's go ahead and take this off. There was a big learning curve trying to figure out how much heat to put in to the rack, but I think structurally it's probably fine. You know, I can probably do a little better filing down here on this, but I just kind of wanted to clean it up and make it look halfway decent. And just use it. I really need to test it, make sure it's strong. I mean, it's very stiff. Even though it's the very thin 1/4-inch tubing, very lightweight tubing, it feels stiff. I mean, I could definitely sit on it. I don't know if I would ride down the road on it like that, but I could sit on it for sure and it wouldn't break. But I just needed to carry 5 or 6 pounds, and I think it's gonna do it. So we'll see. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed following along as I made my very first rack. It was a fun process, and I feel a little more confident now. I learned a little bit about the brazing. I abandoned the silver and just stuck with bronze. That seemed to work just fine. Well, we'll see. Hopefully it's strong enough. I mean, that was why I wanted to first do silver, was to make sure that the joints were nice and strong. Please let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've ever built any racks before, and if you do build racks, let me know some tips for my next one. Things I could do that'll make it a little bit easier. And you know, what kind of filler rod do you use? What kind of flux do you use? That kind of stuff. I think that would be really helpful. All right, I hope everyone has a nice day. We'll see you soon.